The brass handles of the mahogany casket gleamed under crystal chandeliers as 300 mourners filed past in silence. Outside St. Patrick Cathedral on Fifth Avenue, television crews waited behind velvet ropes. Inside, incense mixed with the scent of 10,000 white roses. A string quartet played something mournful near the altar. Gregory Chen. No, wait. Gregory Thornton sat in the front pew, his silver hair perfect, his bryony suit black as midnight, his hands folded across his lap, his face a carved mask. His daughter lay in that casket, 28 years old. Gone. Robert Kane pushed his mop bucket past the side entrance to the cathedral nave, watching the service through a crack in the maintenance door. He should not have been there. His shift cleaning the administrative offices did not start until 9 at night, after evening mass ended. But Father O'Brien had called him at 6 that morning, voice tight with panic. The regular day janitor had not shown up. An important funeral was scheduled. Could Robert cover? Just the basics. Empty the restrooms. Check the kneelers. Stay invisible. Robert needed the money. His daughter Mia had been coughing for 3 weeks. The free clinic said pneumonia. They gave her antibiotics. The antibiotics were not working. The cough had turned wet and rattling. Last night she woke up crying that her chest hurt. This morning her lips looked pale. Robert told her he would take her to the real hospital after his shift. She smiled at him, that gap-toothed 6-year-old smile that broke his heart every single day since her mother walked out. She said, "Okay, Daddy." She trusted him. She always trusted him. So here he was, in his gray maintenance uniform with his name stitched crooked over the pocket, watching the richest man in New York City bury his child while his own child sat with a neighbor 3 subway stops away, breathing too fast, trusting him to make everything okay. The priest spoke about eternal rest, about God's mysterious ways. Gregory Thornton did not move. Around him sat board members, politicians, celebrities in designer black. A woman with diamonds at her throat dabbed her eyes with silk. A man in a $10,000 suit checked his phone. Robert recognized some faces from the newspaper. The deceased was Elizabeth Thornton, heiress, philanthropist, dead at 28 from what the news called a sudden cardiac event during a charity gala 2 nights ago. Collapsed on the dance floor, pronounced dead at the scene. Her father had donated $15 million to cardiac research in her name that same night. Standing in the hospital parking lot, still in his tuxedo, still covered in his daughter's vomit from when he tried to save her with CPR until the paramedics pulled him away. I am watching from over here, wondering if you have ever felt invisible like Robert. Have you ever stood at the edge of someone else's tragedy and realized your own did not matter to anyone but you? Drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from. Maybe you understand what it feels like to be the person no one sees. The eulogy began. Elizabeth's college roommate walked to the podium. Her voice shook. She talked about Elizabeth's laugh, her kindness, how she volunteered at the children's hospital every Sunday, how she always remembered birthdays, how she lit up every room. Robert leaned his mop against the wall. His lower back ached. It always ached. 10 years of night shifts cleaning office buildings, churches, a community college twice a week, mopping floors, scrubbing toilets, emptying trash bins that smelled like old coffee and something rotten he could never identify. His knees hurt from kneeling on tile. His hands were dry and cracked from chemicals. He was 34 years old and felt 60. The roommate finished speaking. She walked back to her seat crying. The priest stood. He opened his mouth to continue. And then Robert heard it. A sound from inside the casket. A thump. He went still. His breath caught. He thought maybe he imagined it. Stress. Exhaustion. Worry about Mia making him hear things that were not there. But then it came again. Softer this time. Not a thump. A scrape. Like fingernails on wood. His heart slammed against his ribs. He looked around. Nobody else reacted. The priest kept talking. The mourners sat frozen in their grief. The string quartet held their instruments. 300 people heard nothing. Another scrape. Then a muffled sound. Almost like a gasp. Robert moved without thinking. He pushed through the maintenance door into the nave. His work boots squeaked on marble. Heads turned. A security guard in the back straightened. Robert walked faster. His pulse roared in his ears. The casket sat 15 feet away on a raised platform covered in white roses. Closed. Sealed. Final. So, you need to leave. A man in a dark suit stepped into the aisle. Private security. Robert could see the earpiece. There's someone in there, Robert said. His voice came out strangled. So, this is a private service. Listen. Robert grabbed the man's arm. Just listen. The security guard jerked away. More men in suits moved toward them. Gregory Thornton stood up from the front pew. His face was unreadable. The priest stopped mid-sentence. 300 people stared at the janitor in the gray uniform who had just interrupted the funeral of the year. Robert ran. He dodged the first security guard and sprinted up the center aisle. Someone shouted. Footsteps pounded behind him. He reached the platform and threw himself at the casket. His hands found the seal. He yanked. It did not move. Locked. Of course it was locked. His fingers scrabbled for a latch, a lever, anything. Get him out of here. That was Gregory Thornton's voice. Cold. Controlled. The voice of a man who gave orders and expected them followed. 2 guards grabbed Robert's arms. He twisted. She's alive, he screamed. She's alive. Stop. Just stop and listen. She's alive in there. I heard her. Please, you have to believe me. Open it. Just open it and look. They dragged him backward. His boots scraped on marble. The congregation erupted in whispers. A woman gasped. Someone said call the police. Someone else said he must be high. Robert fought against the hands holding him, but they were too strong. His shoulders burned. His vision blurred. Wait. Gregory Thornton raised one hand. The guards froze. The whispers died. The billionaire walked toward the casket with slow, measured steps. His face gave nothing away. He reached the platform and stood looking down at the glossy mahogany, at the spray of roses, at the brass nameplate that read Elizabeth and Thornton, beloved daughter. He placed both palms flat on the casket lid. The cathedral held its breath. And then everyone heard it. 3 soft thumps from inside. 8 months earlier, Robert Kane had been a different man. Not happier, not richer, but different in the way hope makes you different. In the small light it puts in your eyes when you wake up and think maybe today will be the day something changes. He had worked as an assistant maintenance supervisor at Thornton Medical Center, one of 15 hospitals Gregory Thornton owned across the Northeast. Robert fixed leaking pipes, replaced ceiling tiles, kept the basement boilers running. The pay was $11 an hour. Not enough. Never enough. But it came with health insurance. Real insurance. The kind that covered Mia when she got strep throat or needed her vaccinations, or that time she broke her arm falling off the monkey bars. His supervisor was a man named Paul Hendricks, 53 years old, 22 years with the hospital, a Red Sox fan who ate lunch alone and never smiled. Paul did not like Robert. Robert could not say why. Maybe because Robert actually fixed things instead of writing reports about why things could not be fixed. Maybe because the nurses thanked Robert by name when he unclogged a sink in the middle of a shift. Maybe for no reason at all except that some people carry so much sourness inside they have to pour it somewhere. Robert's wife had left when Mia was 2. Just packed a bag one Tuesday morning after Robert left for work and never came back. No note. No phone call. He came home to an empty apartment and his daughter sitting in her crib screaming with a full diaper and dried tears on her face. The neighbor heard the crying around noon and broke in. Child services got involved. Robert had to prove he could care for Mia alone. He passed every inspection, got full custody, learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, made dinosaur-shaped pancakes, read the same bedtime story about a brave mouse 4 to 7 nights in a row because it made Mia laugh. He loved his daughter the way you love something you know could be taken away. Then came February. A water main burst in the hospital's east wing at 3 in the morning. Robert was not on call, but Paul phoned him anyway. Get down here. Now. Robert found a neighbor to watch Mia and took the subway through a blizzard. He worked 11 straight hours in freezing water up to his knees, trying to shut off valves that had not been maintained properly because Paul had been cutting the maintenance budget and faking inspection reports for 5 years. Robert found the proof. Invoices for repairs that never happened. Equipment purchases that were never delivered. Paul's signature on safety certifications for boilers that Robert knew personally were held together with electrical tape and prayer. Robert did not want to report it. He needed the job, but then he thought about the patients. The children in the pediatric ward sleeping above those boilers. What would happen when one finally exploded? He went to human resources, showed them everything. They thanked him, opened an investigation. Paul was placed on administrative leave. 3 weeks later, Paul was quietly reinstated. The investigation found insufficient evidence. Robert was fired for insubordination and violating chain of command. His supervisor at the hearing was Paul. The HR representative would not meet Robert's eyes. He cleaned out his locker that same afternoon. No severance. No recommendation letter. They escorted him out through the loading dock like a criminal. He lost the health insurance 30 days later. Mia got sick 4 to 5 days after that. Now Robert worked 3 jobs. Nights cleaning the cathedral and 2 office buildings downtown. Weekends doing maintenance at a storage facility in Queens. Daisy picked up whatever cash work he could find. Painting. Moving furniture. One terrible week in August helping clear out apartments after evictions, boxing up the remains of other people's failed lives. He slept 4 hours a night if he was lucky. He had not been to a dentist in 6 years. His winter coat had duct tape on one elbow. He bought Mia's clothes at Goodwill and his own nowhere. If you are still watching, if this story is hitting you somewhere deep, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Leave a comment about what you are feeling. Subscribe if you have not already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Click the description box for more stories about people the system throws away. Because Robert's story is not unique. It is happening right now. Maybe to someone you know. Maybe to you. The funeral made national news within hours. Man interrupts billionaire funeral claiming body is alive. The video went viral. Someone had been live streaming. You could watch Robert fighting the security guards. Hear him screaming. See Gregory Thornton's hand on the casket. Hear those 3 thumps. The story got better when reporters found out what happened next. Gregory Thornton had the casket unsealed immediately. Opened right there in front of 300 witnesses. Elizabeth Thornton was inside. Pale. Not moving. For 10 long seconds everyone thought Robert was insane. Then her hand twitched. Paramedics rushed in. They pulled her out. Started CPR. Used a defibrillator. Nothing. One of them felt for a pulse at her neck and went very still. He bent close to her face. She's breathing, he said. Barely. But she's breathing. They got her to the ER in 4 minutes. The same hospital where Robert used to work. The doctors could not explain it. Her heart had stopped for nearly 40 minutes of the gala. She had been declared dead by 2 separate physicians. The funeral home had embalmed her, or started to, before Gregory Thornton paid them $250,000 to stop and preserve the body exactly as found. She had been clinically dead for 36 hours. But she was not dead. She was in a coma. Deep. Unresponsive. But alive. The medical community called it a miracle. Some kind of extreme catalepsy. A state so close to death that every sign read as death. Happened maybe once in 10 million cases. The media called it the resurrection. Religious groups said it was divine intervention. Conspiracy theorists said she was never dead at all, that the whole thing was staged for some inscrutable billionaire purpose. Gregory Thornton called Robert a hero, held a press conference, offered a reward. Robert did not attend. He was at the free clinic with Mia, waiting 3 hours to see a doctor who spent 4 minutes listening to her lungs and told him she needed a chest x-ray and probably a specialist. The x-ray alone would cost $200. Robert had $63 in his checking account. He nodded, said thank you, carried Mia home and gave her another dose of the antibiotics that were not working. Then his phone started ringing. The first call was from a journalist at the New York Times. The second from CNN. The 15th from someone claiming to represent Gregory Thornton with an invitation to visit Elizabeth at the hospital. Robert ignored them all. He was not a hero. He had heard a sound and reacted. Anyone would have done the same. Except nobody else heard it. That part kept appearing in articles. 300 people in that cathedral. Professional musicians. Audio engineers running the sound system. Nobody heard anything until Gregory Thornton touched the casket. Only the janitor heard her. People found that suspicious. By day 4, the narrative shifted. Articles appeared questioning Robert's motives. An anonymous source at Thornton Medical Center told reporters that Robert had been fired for erratic behavior. that he had a history of boundary violations, that he had been banned from hospital grounds. None of it was true, but truth did not matter. The internet found his address, found photos of his apartment building with its peeling paint and broken front door, found out he was a single father, drew their own conclusions about what kind of man disrupts a funeral. Some called him a stalker, said he must have been obsessed with Elizabeth Thornton, with the family, that he staged the whole thing somehow. Slip her a drug to fake the death. Bribed the coroner. The theories got more elaborate. The harassment got worse. Someone spray-painted fake across his apartment door. The building supervisor said he had complaints. Said Robert needed to leave. Gave him 30 days. Robert stopped answering his phone. Stopped reading articles about himself. Focused on Mia. Her fever spiked to 103. The cough got worse. She stopped eating. He borrowed $200 from a guy at the storage facility, 20% interest due next week, and took her for the x-ray. The technician made her stand against a cold plate. She cried. The images showed fluid in her lungs. Pneumonia. Survey. She needed to be admitted. Robert explained about the insurance. The hospital billing department was very sorry. They could not admit without payment guarantee. He could apply for charity care. The application took 4 weeks to process. Mia might not have 4 weeks. He carried her home. She fell asleep against his shoulder on the subway. A woman across from them stared. Robert realized his daughter looked like the children in those charity commercials. Too thin, too pale, sick in a way that money could fix, but he did not have money. That night he got a text from an unknown number. Mr. Kane, this is Gregory Thornton. I've been trying to reach you. My daughter wants to meet the man who saved her life. Please call me. Robert deleted it. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Thick cream paper. A check fell out. $50,000. A note in precise handwriting. Accept this with my deepest gratitude. Your courage gave me back my daughter. I am forever in your debt. Robert held the check and started crying. He had not cried since the day his wife left. But here in his kitchen at 2 a.m, holding a piece of paper that could save Mia, he broke. Then he tore the check into pieces and threw it away. He would not take money from Gregory Thornton. He would not take money from anyone. He would figure this out. He always figured it out. Mia needed him to figure it out. But that night, alone in the dark with his daughter coughing in the next room, Robert finally let himself think the thought he had been pushing away for weeks. The thought that sat in his chest like a stone. The thought that maybe this time he could not fix it. Maybe this time the system would win. Maybe his little girl was going to die because he could not afford to save her. Gregory Thornton had not slept since his daughter opened her eyes. It happened on day 9. He sat in the ICU where he had sat for 216 hours, watching machines breathe for Elizabeth, watching monitors track the electricity of her heart. The doctors said she might never wake up. Brain damage. Oxygen deprivation. Her scans showed activity but not consciousness. They prepared him for the worst. Then her hand moved. Her fingers closed around his. Her eyes opened. She looked directly at him and said, "Daddy, why are you crying?" The neurologist called it impossible. Her brain function tested normal. Perfect. No damage. No deficits. She remembered everything up until the moment she collapsed at the gala. She did not remember the funeral. Did not remember the casket. The doctors had no explanation. Gregory did not care about explanations. His daughter was alive. She had asked about the janitor immediately. The man who hurt her. She wanted to know his name. Wanted to meet him. Thank him. Gregory told her about the reward. About the calls and letters Robert ignored. Elizabeth went quiet. Then she said something that had been eating at Gregory ever since. "Dad, what happened to him after? Did the hospital give him anything? Did we make sure he was okay?" Gregory had not thought about it. He sent money. The man refused. That was the end of it. But Elizabeth kept asking. So Gregory made calls. What he learned made him feel something he had not felt in 30 years of business. Shame. Robert Kane had been fired from Thornton Medical Center 8 months ago for reporting safety violations. His supervisor had been falsifying maintenance records. Robert had evidence. He filed a complaint. The supervisor was connected, had friends in hospital administration, had been covering for budget cuts that funneled money to executive bonuses. So they buried the complaint and got rid of the whistleblower. Gregory found the files. The investigation report that called Robert's evidence inconclusive. The termination paperwork citing insubordination. The confidentiality agreement the hospital made Robert sign that prevented him from speaking publicly about what he found. Robert signed it because he needed the severance, except there was no severance. Just an agreement that silenced him. One of Gregory's hospitals had destroyed a good man for telling the truth. He found more. Robert's current employment. 3 part-time jobs. No benefits. An eviction notice filed 2 days ago. A daughter, 6 years old, no mother in the picture. Medical records he should not have been able to access, but money opened doors. The child had pneumonia. Survey. No insurance. The free clinic had referred her to the hospital. The hospital turned her away. His hospital, one of 15 he owned. They turned away a 6-year-old with pneumonia because her father could not pay. Gregory sat in his office on the 63rd floor overlooking Central Park and felt something crack in his chest. He had built an empire on efficiency, on profit margins, on shareholder value. He employed 40,000 people. He donated hundreds of millions to charity. He attended galas, cut ribbons, made speeches about giving back. And right now, the man who saved his daughter's life was watching his own daughter die because Gregory's hospital would not treat her without payment. He called his head of security. Find Robert Kane. Bring him to me. So, he's not responding to contact. I did not ask if he was responding. Find him. Tonight. They found him at the cathedral. 11:30 at night. Mopping the nave. They told him Gregory Thornton wanted to see him. Robert said he was working. They said it could not wait. Robert said nothing was more important than this job. He needed this job. If he left his shift, he would be fired. He had been fired from enough jobs. So Gregory came to him. He arrived at midnight in a town car that probably cost more than Robert's annual income. Walked into St. Patrick Cathedral in a cashmere coat. Found Robert emptying trash bins near the votive candles. Robert saw him and went very still. "Mr. Kane," Gregory said, "we need to talk. I'm working. I will pay for your time. I don't want your money." Robert's voice was flat, exhausted. "I tore up your check. I don't want a reward. I don't want to meet your daughter. I don't want anything from you. I just want to do my job and go home." Gregory studied him. The gray uniform. The cleaning supplies. The man was 34 years old and looked 50. His hands shook. Not from fear. From exhaustion. From hunger. Maybe. Gregory could see his collarbones through his shirt. "Your daughter is sick," Gregory said. Robert's hands clenched. "That's none of your business. She has pneumonia. She needs to be in the hospital. My hospital turned her away." "Yeah, well, your hospital does that a lot. I know what happened to you. At Thornton Medical. The safety violations. Your supervisor. The investigation." Robert turned away. Started wiping down a pew. "I signed something that says I can't talk about that. The confidentiality agreement is void. I voided it. I looked at the files. You were right. Paul Hendricks was falsifying reports. He still is. And we fired you for telling the truth." "So what?" Robert's voice cracked. "You want to give me my job back? Great. I'll take it. $11 an hour and health insurance. That would be amazing right now. But that's not why you are here. You want to feel better about yourself. You want to be the hero who helps the janitor. Well, I don't need saving. I need my daughter to stop coughing. I need to pay rent. I need the world to stop treating me like I'm invisible unless I'm useful to somebody rich." Gregory absorbed that. He deserved it. Every word. "Where's your daughter now?" he asked. "With a neighbor. Is she safe?" Robert's hands stopped moving. His shoulders sagged. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "I don't know. She can't breathe right. She keeps saying her chest hurts. The antibiotics aren't working. She needs real treatment. She needs me to fix this. And I can't. I work 3 jobs. I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in 8 months. I do everything right. I show up. I work hard. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I take care of my kid. And none of it matters because the system is designed to crush people like me." Tears ran down Robert's face. He wiped them away with the back of his hand. "So I don't need your pity. I don't need your money. I need the world to be different, and you can't give me that. Nobody can." Gregory felt something shift inside him. A decision forming. The kind of decision that changes everything. Come with me, he said. I told you, I'm working. Your shift ends at 6. It's past midnight. You have worked overtime. I will make sure you are paid. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. Right now, we are going to get your daughter. We are taking her to the hospital. Thornton Medical. She will be admitted tonight. The best pediatric pulmonologist in the state will see her in the morning. Everything will be covered. No bills. No applications. No waiting. Robert shook his head. I said I don't want your charity. This is not charity. This is me fixing a wrong my company committed against you. This is the absolute minimum of what I owe you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. You saved my daughter's life. But more than that, you were treated unjustly by an institution I am responsible for. That makes it my job to make it right. Robert stayed at him, searching for the catch. The angle. Everyone had an angle. Gregory held his gaze. I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm not asking you to thank me. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I am simply telling you that your daughter will be treated tonight, and you will never receive a bill. Whether you accept that or not is your choice. Robert's hands trembled. His face worked. Finally, he put down his cleaning supplies and nodded. They picked up Mia 20 minutes later. The neighbor opened the door looking annoyed until she saw Gregory Thornton standing in the hallway. Her eyes went wide. Mia was on the couch wrapped in a blanket that looked older than Robert. She was coughing, a wet, rattling sound that made Gregory's stomach turn. Her lips had a blue tinge. Robert scooped her up. She buried her face in his neck. Daddy, I don't feel good. I know, baby. We're going to fix it. I promise. In the town car, Gregory watched Robert hold his daughter. The girl's breathing sounded terrible. Her small chest heaved with effort. Robert whispered to her, stroked her hair. His eyes were closed. His lips moved. Gregory realized he was praying. They reached the hospital in 12 minutes. Gregory had called ahead. The head of pediatrics met them at the ER entrance. Nurses appeared with a gurney. They tried to take Mia from Robert's arms. He would not let go. Sir, we need to examine her. I'm coming with her. You can't be in the exam room. Then she's not going. The head of pediatrics, a woman named Dr. Rivera whom Gregory had hired personally 5 years ago, put a hand on Robert's shoulder. You can stay right next to her the whole time. Robert finally released his daughter. They put her on the gurney. He walked beside her, holding her hand. Gregory watched them disappear through automatic doors. He stood in the ER waiting room surrounded by people who glanced at him and looked away. He was not supposed to be here. Billionaires did not wait in emergency rooms. But he stayed. He pulled out his phone and made calls. To his head of HR, to the hospital board, to his lawyers. By dawn, Paul Hendricks would be terminated. The maintenance department would be audited. The billing policies would be reviewed. Anyone turned away for inability to pay in the last year would be contacted and offered treatment. By dawn, things would be different. At 3 in the morning, Dr. Rivera emerged. She's stable. Pneumonia, as suspected. Survey. Another few days and it would have been critical. We have her on oxygen and 4 antibiotics. She is responding well. Robert, who had been sitting with his head in his hands, looked up. Can I see her? She's sleeping. But yes. Gregory followed them back. Mia lay in a hospital bed that seemed enormous around her small body. Oxygen prongs in her nose, and 4 in her hand. Monitors beeped softly. Her color already looked better. Robert stood beside the bed and started crying. Not quiet tears this time. Deep, shaking sobs. The kind that come from breaking after holding yourself together too long. Dr. Rivera left them alone. Gregory stood in the doorway. He should leave. This was private. But something kept him there. Thank you, Robert said without turning around. His voice was wrecked. I don't have the words. I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't need to, Gregory said. She's all I have. If I lost her. Robert could not finish. Gregory thought about Elizabeth. About those 3 thumps. About a world where he never heard them. Where he buried his daughter and never knew. I understand, he said quietly. They stayed like that. A janitor and a billionaire. 2 fathers watching a child sleep. The machines beeped. Mia's chest rose and fell. The dawn came through the window, and Gregory Thornton knew his work was just beginning. Robert did not leave the hospital for 3 days. The nurses brought him food. He slept in the chair beside Mia's bed, waking every time she stirred. Dr. Rivera checked on them twice each shift. Mia's fever broke on day 2. By day 3, she was sitting up, asking for cartoons, complaining that the floor hurt. She was going to be fine. Robert cried again when Dr. Rivera told him. Just for a minute. Then he pulled himself together and asked when they could go home. Another day or 2, Dr. Rivera said. We want to make sure the antibiotics have cleared the infection completely. And the bill? Robert asked. His voice was careful. Braced. There is no bill. Mr. Thornton made that very clear. Robert nodded. He still did not understand why. People like Gregory Thornton did not help people like Robert Kane without wanting something. But Mia was alive and breathing easily, and right now that was all that mattered. On day 4, Gregory Thornton visited. He brought flowers for Mia. Sunflowers. She smiled at them, asked if he was the nice man her daddy talked about. Gregory said yes. She asked if he was very rich. Gregory said yes. She asked if he could get her a pony. Gregory laughed. It was the first time Robert had ever heard him laugh. It sounded rusty, like he was out of practice. Maybe when you are older, Gregory said. After Mia fell asleep, the 2 men sat in the hallway outside her room. Gregory looked tired. Not exhausted like Robert. Different. Like he had been thinking too hard. I need to talk to you about something, Gregory said. Here it comes, Robert thought. The favor. The request. The reason he really did all this. My daughter wants to meet you, Gregory continued. She has been asking about you every day. She says she remembers your voice. From inside the casket. She wants to thank you. I don't need thanks. I know, but she needs to give it. Would you consider visiting her? Just once. You could bring Mia. Elizabeth loves children. Robert hesitated, then nodded. He owed Gregory that much at least. They discharged Mia on day 5. Robert carried her out into October sunshine. She turned her face up to the light and said, Daddy, I feel better. Robert held her tighter. Gregory had arranged for them to stay somewhere while their apartment situation resolved. A hotel, he said. Just temporary. Until Robert figured things out. Robert wanted to refuse. Wanted to say he could figure it out himself. But Mia needed somewhere warm and clean to recover. So he accepted. The hotel was the plaza. Robert stood in the marble lobby and felt like he had walked into a different dimension. Gregory checked them in personally. The suite had 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Central Park. Mia ran from room to room, shouting about how big everything was. This is too much, Robert said. It's what we had available, Gregory replied. A lie. They both knew it. Stay as long as you need. That night, Robert ordered room service because he did not know what else to do. A burger for Mia. Soup for himself. It cost $48. He almost threw up. But when the food came, Mia ate 3 bites and said it was the best burger she ever had. Robert would have paid $1,000 to see her smile like that. They visited Elizabeth Thornton the next day. She lived in a penthouse apartment overlooking the Hudson River. The living room was bigger than Robert's entire apartment building. Art on the walls that he recognized from museums. Furniture that looked like it came from a palace. Elizabeth sat on a cream-colored couch, wrapped in a cashmere throw. She looked fragile, pale, but her eyes were bright. When Robert walked in with Mia, she stood up. You're him, she said. You're the one who heard me. Robert did not know what to say. I just reacted. Anyone would have. But no one else did. 300 people. None of them heard me. Just you. She crossed the room. She was crying. I was so scared. I could hear everything, feel everything, but I could not move, could not scream. I thought I was going to be buried alive. And then I heard you, your voice, telling them I was alive, fighting for me. She grabbed his hands. You saved my life. How do I ever repay that? You don't, Robert said quietly. You just live. That's enough. Elizabeth looked at Mia, who was hiding behind Robert's legs. Is this your daughter? Mia peeked out, nodded. What's your name? Mia. That's a beautiful name. Do you want to see something cool? Mia nodded again. Elizabeth led her to the window, showed her the boats on the Hudson. The two of them talked while Robert stood awkwardly in the living room, feeling completely out of place. Gregory appeared beside him. You did well raising her. She's polite, happy, despite everything. I do my best. It shows. They stood in silence. Finally, Gregory said, I looked into your situation at the hospital. The maintenance issues. Your supervisor. It was worse than I thought. The boilers you flagged are 40 years old. 2 of them are actively leaking carbon monoxide into the ventilation system. We're lucky no one has died. Robert's stomach dropped. I told them. I showed them the readings. I know. And they buried it. Paul Hendricks has been falsifying safety reports for years, skimming from the maintenance budget. He has friends in administration who look the other way, until you force them to look. So they got rid of you instead. Why are you telling me this? Because I fired him yesterday, and 3 members of hospital administration, and I'm issuing a public apology. You were right. You were wronged, and I'm making it as public as possible so everyone knows. Robert absorbed that. Part of him felt vindicated. The rest just felt tired. I also want to offer you a job, Gregory continued. Director of Facilities Safety. For all 15 hospitals. You would oversee maintenance, inspections, safety protocols. Make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. The salary is $90,000 a year. Full benefits. Housing stipend if you need it. Robert stared at him. Why? Because you are qualified. Because you care. Because I need someone who will tell me the truth even when it costs them. I'm a janitor. You're a man who risked everything to do the right thing. Twice. That's exactly who I need. Robert wanted to say yes. $90,000. Insurance. A real job. Security. Everything he needed to give Mia a stable life. But something stopped him. What's the catch? He asked. Gregory looked at him. No catch. There's always a catch. Not this time. But there was. Robert felt it. In the way Gregory watched him. In the weight of this apartment. This offer. This world he did not belong to. Accepting meant stepping into Gregory Thornton's orbit. Becoming part of his story. His redemption narrative. The janitor he saved. Before Robert could answer, his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then something made him answer. Mr. Kane. A woman's voice. Formal. This is Jennifer Wu from the New York Post. I'd like to ask you some questions about your relationship with Elizabeth Thornton. Robert's blood went cold. I don't have a relationship with her. I barely know her. But you're at her apartment right now, aren't you? With your daughter, living at the Plaza Hotel on Gregory Thornton's dime. Working for him now. Hey. How do you know that? Sources. Mr. Kane. Some people are suggesting your heroism at the funeral was not as spontaneous as it seemed. That you had access to Elizabeth through your previous employment. That perhaps you knew she was not really dead. That this entire thing was staged. I'd like to give you a chance to respond. Robert hung up. His hands shook. What's wrong? Gregory asked. Robert told him. Gregory's face darkened. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Get legal on this now. I want a statement released in an hour. Anyone printing conspiracy theories about Robert Kane answers to our lawyers. But it was too late. By that evening, the articles were everywhere. Questions about timeline, about access, about motive. Why would a fired janitor be at a funeral for someone he never met? How did he hear her when no one else did? What was his relationship with the family? Really? Someone leaked that Robert was staying at the plaza, that Gregory had offered him a job. The internet exploded. He's a con artist. He's sleeping with the daughter. He faked the whole thing for money. Look at him now, living in luxury while real heroes go unnoticed. Robert's phone would not stop ringing. Reporters outside the plaza. Camera crews. Someone posted his daughter's name online. Her school. Robert panicked. Called the school. They said they would increase security, but maybe Mia should stay home for a while. Gregory hired security. Posted guards outside Robert's hotel room. Released statements. Threatened lawsuits. Nothing stopped it. The story had taken on its own life. On day 3, someone threw a brick through Elizabeth's window. Attached to it was a note. Liars. Fake. We know the truth. The police investigated. Found nothing. Gregory moved Elizabeth to a secure location. Offered to do the same for Robert and Mia. Robert refused. He was done. Done with this world. Done with the attention. Done with feeling like he owed anyone anything. I can't take the job, he told Gregory. I appreciate everything you have done. But all of this, it's too much. I just want to go back to my life. You can't, Gregory said quietly. Not now. The story is out there. Your name is out there. Going back to being invisible is not an option anymore. Then I'll move. Change my name. Start over. And Mia? You want her growing up thinking her father ran away? That the world pushed you out? Robert had no answer to that. That night, alone in the hotel room after Mia fell asleep, Robert stood at the window looking out at Central Park. At the life he could have if he accepted Gregory's offer. Stability. Security. A future. Everything he ever wanted for his daughter. But at what cost? Becoming the person everyone thought he was. The charity case? The hero? The man who owed Gregory Thornton his life. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just a photo. Robert's apartment building. Someone spray-painted across the front door. Fraud. Get out. Robert closed his eyes. The system was crushing him again. Different system. Same pressure. Push back. Get destroyed. Stay quiet. Get destroyed. There was no winning. They never had been. Unless he stopped trying to win on their terms. He pulled out his phone and called Gregory. I'll take the job, Robert said. But on one condition. Tomorrow, I want to hold a press conference. And I want to tell them everything. The truth about what happened at the hospital. About Paul. About the system that punishes whistleblowers. About how your company wronged me and you're trying to make it right. No PR spin. No carefully worded statements. Just the truth. Silence on the other end. Then, that could hurt us. The hospital. The company. Shareholders won't like it. I know. That's why I'm asking. Because if you really mean what you said about needing someone who tells the truth, this is your chance to prove it. More silence. Robert waited. Finally, Gregory said, Okay, tomorrow, 10 a.m. You say whatever you need to say. Robert hung up, looked at his daughter sleeping in the next room, at the city spread out below him, at the life that was about to change again, one way or another. But this time, he would change it on his terms, even if it cost him everything. Truth was the only thing he had left that nobody could take away. The press conference was held at Thornton Medical Center, in the same hospital where Robert had once fixed leaking pipes and replaced light bulbs, in the same building where he had been escorted out through the loading dock 8 months ago. Now he stood at a podium in the main conference room, facing 50 journalists and twice as many cameras. Gregory sat to his left, Elizabeth to his right, against her doctor's advice but insisting she had to be there. Mia stayed at the hotel with security and a very nice woman named Claire who promised to order ice cream and watch movies all day. Robert's hands gripped the edges of the podium. His prepared remarks sat in front of him. Gregory's lawyers had reviewed them, softened some language, removed anything that could be considered defamatory. What remained was sanitized, safe, corporate. Robert pushed the papers aside. My name is Robert Kane, he said. His voice echoed through the room. 8 months ago, I worked here as a maintenance assistant. I fixed things. I kept this hospital running. I made $11 an hour. I was proud of that job. Proud to be part of something that helped people. He paused. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Then I found out my supervisor was falsifying safety reports, cutting corners, risking lives to save money. I reported it because I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought the hospital would thank me. Instead, they fired me, called it insubordination, made me sign paperwork that said I could not talk about what I found. I signed it because I needed the severance money. Except there was no severance. Just silence. Murmurs in the room. Gregory's face was unreadable. Robert kept going. 3 months later, my daughter got sick. Pneumonia. I took her to the free clinic. They gave her antibiotics. The antibiotics did not work. She needed real treatment. I brought her here, to this hospital, and they turned her away because I could not pay. They turned away a 6-year-old child because her father lost his job for telling the truth. His voice cracked. He steadied himself. That's the system. That's how it works. You do the right thing, you get punished. You ask for help, you get told you do not deserve it. You work 3 jobs and still can't afford to keep your kid alive. And everyone pretends that's normal. That's just how things are. A reporter called out, "Mr. Kane, are you saying Gregory Thornton is responsible for what happened to you?" Robert looked at Gregory. The billionaire nodded. "Go ahead. Say it." "Yes," Robert said. "This is his hospital, his company, his responsibility. When his employees destroyed my life for doing the right thing, that falls on him. When his hospital turned away my dying daughter, that falls on him. He owns this. All of it." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras swiveled to Gregory. Robert kept talking, raising his voice over the noise. But here's the part that matters. When Gregory Thornton found out what happened, he did not make excuses. He did not hide behind lawyers. He fired the people responsible. He made sure my daughter got treatment. He offered to make things right. Not because he had to, not for good publicity, but because it was the right thing to do. The room quieted. I did not want his help. I did not want his money. I wanted to fix things myself because that's what I have always done. But sometimes you can't fix things alone. Sometimes the system is too big, too broken. Sometimes you need someone with power to stand up and say this is wrong, and I am going to change it. Robert looked directly at the cameras. So here's the truth. I saved Elizabeth Thornton's life because I heard her and reacted. That does not make me a hero. That makes me a human being who was paying attention. But what makes Gregory Thornton different from every other billionaire I have ever heard about is that when he saw someone in his own system being crushed, he stopped it. He could have sent money and walked away. Instead, he tore apart his own company to find out what went wrong. And now he is standing here letting me say all this publicly because he knows people need to hear it. He paused, looked at Gregory again. "I'm taking a job here. Director of Facilities Safety. Not because I owe Gregory Thornton. Not because he bought me. But because I can use that position to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else. I can make sure the boilers get fixed. The safety reports are real. The whistleblowers get protected instead of punished. I can change the system from inside it." Another reporter shouted, "What about the conspiracy theories? The people saying you staged the funeral?" Robert's jaw tightened. "Let me be very clear. I did not stage anything. I heard a sound. I reacted. Elizabeth Thornton was clinically dead. The doctors confirmed it. The funeral home confirmed it. What happened was a medical impossibility that somehow happened anyway. If you want to call that a miracle, fine. If you want to call it science we don't understand yet, also fine. But what you cannot call it is a conspiracy. I am a janitor, not a mastermind. And anyone who thinks I had the resources or intelligence to fake something like this needs to meet me in person and realize how ridiculous that sounds." Scattered laughter in the room. The tension broke slightly. Elizabeth leaned forward to her own microphone. "Can I say something?" All cameras turned to her. She looked small under the lights. Fragile, but her voice was steady. "I remember being inside that casket. I remember hearing my father cry, hearing the priest, hearing everyone say goodbye. I could not move, could not breathe. I thought I was in hell, that this was my punishment for something. And then I heard a stranger's voice, far away, saying she's alive. Please, she's alive. That voice saved me. It gave me something to focus on, something to fight toward." Tears streamed down her face. Robert Kane did not know me, had no reason to care if I lived or died. But he fought for me anyway. He risked looking crazy, risked getting arrested. He did it because it was right. And later, when my father wanted to thank him, he said no. When we offered money, he said no. He wanted nothing from us except to be left alone to take care of his daughter. That's not a con artist. That's a good man. She looked at Robert. "So I don't care what anyone says. I know the truth. You saved me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that." The room went silent. Then someone started clapping. Another person joined. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Robert stood at the podium, overwhelmed, unsure what to do. Gregory stepped to the microphone. "I have an announcement. Effective immediately, Thornton Medical is implementing new whistleblower protections. Any employee who reports safety violations will be protected from retaliation. We are creating an independent review board. We are auditing all 15 hospitals for maintenance issues. And we are changing our billing policies. No child will be turned away for inability to pay. Ever. More applause. Questions erupted. How much would it cost? Where would the money come from? What about shareholders? Gregory held up a hand. I am not asking permission. I am telling you what is happening. This company has lost its way. We forgot that we are supposed to heal people, not profit from their desperation. That changes now. And if shareholders don't like it, they can sell their stock. The conference lasted another hour. Reporters asked every question they could think of. Robert answered honestly. Gregory backed him up. Elizabeth told her story. By the end, the narrative had shifted. No longer a conspiracy. No longer a fraud. Just a man who did the right thing and paid for it, and a billionaire who tried to make it right. That evening, Robert and Mia moved into a small house in Queens. Not the plaza. Not a penthouse. Just a two-bedroom rental in a neighborhood with good schools and a park on the corner. Gregory offered something bigger. Robert said no. He wanted normal. He needed normal. He started his new job the next week. The first thing he did was fire the remaining maintenance supervisors who had been part of the cover-up. The second thing was to personally inspect every boiler in every hospital. He found problems everywhere. Decades of neglect. Corners cut. Lives risked. He wrote reports. Filed violations. Did not care whose feelings he hurt. Some people resented him. Called him Gregory's pet. Said he only got the job because of the funeral. Robert did not care. He had spent too long being invisible. Now he had power. He was going to use it. 3 months after the press conference, Mia started at her new school. Robert walked her to the door on the first day. She wore a new backpack, new shoes. She looked healthy, happy. The cough was gone. The color had returned to her cheeks. You nervous? Robert asked. A little. You're going to do great. She hugged him. Thank you, Daddy, for fixing everything. Robert held her tight. I'll always fix everything, baby. That's my job. He watched her go inside, stood on the sidewalk long after she disappeared, thinking about how close he came to losing her, how close the system came to crushing both of them. His phone buzzed. A text from Gregory. Elizabeth wants to have dinner this weekend. You, me, her, and Mia. Are you free? Robert smiled. Type back. Yeah, we're free. Over the next 6 months, the changes took hold. Whistleblower reports increased. Safety violations were fixed. Billing complaints dropped. People noticed. Other hospitals started adopting similar policies. The industry trade magazines wrote about it, called it the Thornton model, said it proved you could do well by doing good. Robert was interviewed for those articles. He told the same story every time. About being fired. About watching his daughter almost die. About a system that only works for people with money. He did not pull punches, did not sanitize, just told the truth. And people listened. 1 year after the funeral, Robert stood in the same cathedral where it all started. Not cleaning this time, not hiding in the shadows. He stood in the front pew beside Gregory and Elizabeth, watching as they dedicated a new foundation. The Elizabeth and Mia Foundation, focused on providing free medical care to uninsured children. Named after Gregory's daughter who came back from the dead, and the janitor's daughter who almost did not. Mia sat next to him, swinging her legs, bored by all the speeches. She whispered, "When can we go get ice cream?" Robert smiled. "Soon, baby, soon." After the ceremony, as they filed out into autumn sunshine, Elizabeth pulled Robert aside. "I need to tell you something. The doctors finally figured out what happened to me. Why I appeared dead when I was not." Robert waited. "It's called cataleptic shock. Extremely rare. My heart rate dropped so low it was undetectable. My breathing stopped. Every clinical sign said I was dead. But some tiny part of my brain was still conscious. Still aware. The doctors said maybe 1 in 50 million people experience it. And even fewer survive it. Because usually, by the time anyone realizes the person is still alive, they have been buried." Robert absorbed that. "So I just happened to be there at the exact right moment." "No, Elizabeth said quietly. You happen to be paying attention when no one else was. That's different. That's everything. They stood in the cathedral doorway. People streamed past. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Gregory appeared, gestured to the car waiting at the curb. But Robert paused, looked back at the cathedral, at the nave where he used to mop, at the door he used to enter through, at the life he used to live. You okay? Gregory asked. Robert nodded. Yeah, just remembering. Remembering what? What it felt like to be invisible. Gregory followed his gaze. You were never invisible, Robert. The world just was not looking. They walked out together, into the noise, the lights, the life that had become Robert's new normal. Mia grabbed his hand, pulled him toward the car, chatted about ice cream flavors. Robert looked down at his daughter, at her bright eyes, her easy breathing, her complete trust that everything would be okay because her daddy was there. And he realized something. He did not save Elizabeth Thornton that day in the cathedral. She saved him, gave him a reason to be seen, a platform to tell the truth, a chance to change the system instead of being crushed by it. Sometimes the person you save ends up saving you back. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, the universe pays you back in ways you never expected. Robert got into the car. Mia climbed onto his lap. Gregory and Elizabeth sat across from them. Four people who should never have been in the same room, now bound together by a moment of impossible survival. Where to? The driver asked. Ice cream, Mia announced. Everyone laughed, even Robert. And as the car pulled away from the cathedral, away from the past, toward whatever came next, Robert allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope of someone drowning, but the solid, grounded hope of someone who knows the worst is behind them, who knows they can survive, who knows that sometimes, against all odds, the good guys win. The car merged into traffic. The city moved around them. The world kept turning. And Robert Kane, former janitor, current director, father, friend, the man who heard what no one else could hear, finally understood the lesson it took losing everything to learn. You do not need to be invisible to survive. You just need to be brave enough to be seen.